It's hard not to wax philosophical about crayons. The average North American kid uses 730 of them by the age of 10. An American chemical company invented crayons in 1903. It took the basic wax crayon it already made for marking crates and barrels and came up with a non-toxic version in different colors. These crayons are made from a combination of waxes, primarily paraffin, which is ideal for making crayons because it's inexpensive and easy to melt. It also has what's called a nice rub-off, meaning it leaves enough wax on the paper. They melt the wax at about 62 degrees Celsius. Then add a secret powder to strengthen the crayon and act as a filler, boosting the number of crayons the wax will produce. They also add various synthetic chemicals. There's one to keep the wax from sticking to the mold, and a fatty acid called stearic acid to improve the rub-off. Now they tint the wax, in this case yellow and red, to produce orange crayons. This factory can produce 127 different colors. Every ingredient in the crayons is non-toxic. After adding more wax, they blend the mixture for about 45 minutes. Now they pump the wax into this device called a rotary machine. It first injects the wax into crayon-shaped molds. Then it envelops the molds in cool water, hardening the wax within roughly a minute. As the molds continue along the circuit, a blade scrapes off the excess, which gets recycled. Just one rotary machine molds more than 2,700 crayons per cycle. With several machines operating simultaneously, this factory churns out 30,000 crayons per hour. The machine ejects the crayons, and a conveyor transports them to the labeling machine. One by one, they drop into the grooves of a revolving drum. At the bottom left, a gluer coats the surface in between the grooves just before the crayons go in. The machine then slaps a label onto each crayon. A roller presses the label against the adhesive, then a little arm wraps it around the crayon. This machine labels 8,500 crayons per hour. The crayons exit the labeling machine and land in a bulk box. Workers sort the crayons by color into the appropriate hoppers of the packing machine. The packaging line is entirely automated. The factory programs the machine to collect a certain number of crayons in specific colors according to the type of pack in production. Their best sellers are packs of 16 and 24. The packing machine is designed to handle the crayons gently. Occasionally, though, a crayon does crack or a label comes loose. When that happens, a sensor automatically stops the machine and a light goes on above the problem hopper. Workers clear the jam, then production resumes. Once the count is complete, the crayon line and the box line meet. A pushing device slides each set of crayons into a box. A built-in scale weighs every box. Should one be underweight, the machine automatically blows it off the conveyor belt. A worker then manually adds the missing crayon, ensuring a full complement of colors for every budding artist. Of years, Aboriginal people in the Arctic have used kayaks to hunt, and for good reasons. These slender vessels glide swiftly in the water and are light enough to carry. High-tech materials make today's wooden kayaks more durable than ever, yet still a glorious way to slice the water. It starts with plywood made from okume, a rugged type of mahogany. A computer-guided routing machine cuts out the boat's various parts. One has finger joints that interlock with another piece to make one long strip. These panels will cover the sides of the vessel and most of the top. The planks are so thin, just 4 millimeters, that the entire kayak will weigh only 17 kilograms. Then there are bulkheads, end panels, footrests, and curved pieces to support the deck and sides. After applying 2 coats of epoxy resin, a craftsman assembles the parts and secures them in a jig for 6 hours until the glue sets. The side panels will span the entire length of the boat at just over 5 meters. Assembling the kayak is pretty straightforward, so if you want to save money and do it yourself, you can buy this kayak cheaper as a kit. He planes and sands the end panels to create a curved tip. He drills small holes, spaced 12 centimeters apart along the edges of the bottom panels. Then he threads copper wire through the holes. This stitches the panels together temporarily, keeping them flexible and thereby easy to assemble for gluing. He places wooden pegs between the side panels to pry them open. Then joins those panels with 2 screws in the front and 2 in the back. At this stage, the kayak is upside down, so they add the bottom panels. He attaches them with copper wire because it won't stick to the resin he'll use to glue these parts together. After flipping the boat, he attaches a bulkhead with more wire. It's one of 2 separators that create stowage compartments. Using a putty knife as a gauge, he ensures the gaps at the seams are even. Then he flips the boat and coats the seams in resin. He lets it dry for 6 hours, just part of the 40 hours it takes to build the kayak. Before the glue hardens, he makes sure the top of the boat is level. This way he can adjust the pieces if he needs to. After removing the wire from the seams, he applies more resin to these areas. Over this, strips of fiberglass cloth to form a watertight seal. He'll also apply 3 more coats of resin throughout the inside of the kayak. Once it dries, and he sands and varnishes the entire surface, the craftsman adds the footrest assembly. This one's got pivot pads with cables that control a rudder to help steer the boat. This is an optional feature. Otherwise, there's a simple foot brace and you just use your paddle to go with the flow. Next, craftsmen apply resin along the kayak's upper rim. They add the top panel to form the deck. Then they wrap the entire boat in packing tape, which compresses the panels as the resin sets for 12 hours. These pieces form a raised rim around where the kayaker sits. A waterproof skirt fits under this rim, keeping the area dry in the water. The deck gets 2 coats of resin. An hour later, they spread fiberglass over the bottom to seal and protect the wood. The bottom then gets 3 coats of resin. Next, they spray on up to 6 coats of varnish, depending on the type of finish the boat will have. This protects the wood from sun damage. They add a foam backrest and a seat for your comfort on the trek. And finally, flexible rubber straps. They're for securing your harpoon, or more likely, your paddle. Either way, you're in for quite a trip.